This podcast is for educational purposes. Our guests aren't scripted and are free to speak their minds. Therefore, their views and opinions don't necessarily reflect those of BridgeBio Pharma. Also, your doctor is your best source of information about any symptoms you might be experiencing. Please consult a medical care professional about any health questions and concerns. Now, we hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello and welcome to On Rare, a rare disease podcast produced by BridgeBio, a biotech company that works on developing treatments for rare diseases. On Rare gives us the chance to listen and learn from people living with rare conditions. I'm your host, Mandy Rohrig, a member of the Patient Advocacy team, and as always, I'm joined by my longtime friend and colleague, David Rintell, Head of Patient Advocacy at BridgeBio. Hi, David.
Hi, Mandy. Great to see you. Great to be doing another podcast, especially with Daniel.
Yes. David and I were able to meet with Daniel, a person living with TSC in North Carolina, just a few weeks ago. Tuberous Sclerosis Complex is what the TSC stands for. It's a condition that causes non-cancerous tumors throughout the body. And we'll hear from Daniel in a bit, but first we're going to talk to one of our colleagues, Chei, to understand a little bit more about what TSC is.
Thanks so much for joining us, Chei.
Thank you for having me.
Chei Chang is a principal scientist on the tuberous sclerosis team at Gondola Bio, which is part of the BridgeBio ecosystem. So, what is tuberous sclerosis?
Yeah, of course. Happy to share. Tuberous sclerosis complex is a rare genetic disorder that causes seizures and also tumors in many organ systems. And this disease affects about 50,000 people in United States and over 1 million worldwide. And this is first described in late 19th centuries by a French neurologist who found tuber in patient brains. And tuber, if you are curious, part of your brain tissue, the shape is just irregular to your other brain tissues.
The word tuber is very close to the word tumor. Would you explain the difference between the two?
So tuber is just a mixture of different type of brain cells, and those cells, the shape or how they look like are very different from normal brain cells. And it doesn't grow, but instead tumor, it just keep growing. It can become larger. I think that's a primary difference.
Do we know why some people develop these tubers and other people don't?
It's a genetic disorder, so it's caused by loss of function mutations in either TSC1 or TSC2 gene. Yeah, and these mutations inactivate their function.
Help us understand what a loss of function mutation means.
Basically, loss of function meaning just literally those proteins are either not present in the cells or they still hang around, but they are not functional to do their job, which in this case for TSC is to inhibit an enzyme called mTOR. And mTOR is like a master regulator of many cell functions like cell growth, like the size, the shape of cells, or proliferation, like number of cells, and also to promote the protein and the lipid synthesis. They are like the building bricks of cells.
So the gene doesn't work, and that means that there's no control over the amount of mTOR that is produced, and it is mTOR then that causes the growth of tubers.
That's correct. So it's like TSC is like a break, and that end up leading to seizures in the brain and also tumors in the body.
Can the tubers grow all over the body? Are there particular locations?
So tubers are only in the brain, as opposed to tumors that are also in the brain and also skin, kidney, heart, and lung in women.
I see. Tubers in the lung are found only in women, but not in men with TSC?
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, really? Does anyone understand why that is?
It's not fully understood. So maybe in men, there's also tumors in lung, but they don't cause any defects in the lung. So they're asymptomatic, and therefore they just don't notice.
Tubers are in the brain. Tumors are present in the other organ systems that you listed. Okay.
For example, I think tumors in kidney in the TSC patients is a primary concern for adults, and because those tumors, they grow and that will impair your kidney functions. And another pretty big complication is the tumors in skin, especially on the face. So you can imagine if the kids have that bump on the face, they will have psychological and the social impact, and that greatly affects their quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Visible symptoms are often much more challenging because they're noticeable, and the reactions of other people or other children can, let's just say, not be very positive or sympathetic. So
you totally got it, David. Yes.
How is tuberous sclerosis complex usually diagnosed? Is it the appearance of the tumors on the face, or is it because of seizures, or how is it usually spotted?
So usually if an individual has two major features, for example, if you have tumors in the brain and you also have tumor in the kidney, and you will be diagnosed as definite TSC. And of course, the genetic testing is the definitive for TSC diagnosis.
Is it inherited from parents?
Yeah, that's a great question. To my knowledge, in most of the cases, it's inherited, but only in one copy of your gene. So usually in the cells, there are two copies. And just for some reason, the second copy of your TSC1 or TSC2 have a de novo mutation, meaning that the mutation just occurs spontaneously.
It sounds like it operates like an autosomal recessive pattern of inheritance, except that all you need is one copy of the gene that does not work from a parent, and the other copy can appear spontaneously.
Yeah, but it's not like the conventional autosomal recessive. In some literatures, actually, they describe TSC as autosomal dominant just because you only get one mutant copy from your parents.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's different than a lot of genetic conditions.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess my last question, is there any treatment, what is out there to help people with tuberous sclerosis, if anything?
Yeah, so mTOR inhibitors already are available for patients, and those used for kidney tumors, for brain tumors, and also the topical gels for the skin tumors. Mm-hmm. And as for seizures, which is major concerns, usually the doctor will prescribe the anti-seizure drugs, but oftentimes they are not effective. Patients are resistant to these anti-seizure drugs. So patients have to go through many different anti-seizure drugs until they identify what works for them.
So are the mTOR inhibitors effective?
Yeah, so mTOR inhibitor actually works pretty well in controlling the kidney tumors. In the brain tumors, it also work pretty well, and also the topical use for the skin.
Well, thank you, Chae-Wei. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and this conversation was eye-opening. Having this background really will help us as we talk to Daniel, living with tuberous sclerosis. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully we can raise awareness of TSC to the public and help the patients.
We're so pleased to welcome you, Daniel. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on this podcast.
Really happy to have you. We're together in Raleigh, North Carolina. Daniel has just taken a tour of the gene therapy labs. How was that actually for you?
It was really eye-opening understanding the background knowledge of gene therapy, of what so many may not understand, and adults for myself are living with TSC that don't know what gene therapy is. I think everyone should at least understand, have some sort of virtual tour or some sort of thing to understand more about what gene therapy is, because it is the next generation of what we're going to face in our life.
You're correct. The gene therapy is extremely complicated. It's still like a new medical technology. Amazing how you can replace a gene that doesn't work with a gene that does work. So you are living with tuberous sclerosis complex. As you can see, I'm having trouble saying that, tuberous sclerosis complex, and we'll just call it TSC. And where does the story begin for you in terms of your awareness of having TSC?
So I live in the Seattle-Tacoma area. I am a Chinese adoptee. I'm currently 31 years old. I was diagnosed with TSC when I was about 6 or 7 years old through the skin, through the dermatologist, through the white patches. It was during the late 90s when what technology was still being discovered. There wasn't much information at the time. My adoptive mother, she got a book saying that here is what you're going to be facing and that you need to basically go see all these doctors. So therefore, there was my journey started. I was diagnosed with TSC post-adoption, not pre-adoption. And I think it lost a lot of people when they ask me is like medical history and all other stuff. That's one of the hard parts.
Yeah. What brought you to the dermatologist to get this test? Like, were you having a skin problem or something, or symptoms or something that made them give this test to you?
My mother was telling me that I had some sort of skin showings, manifestations is what it's called, on my face as well as other areas on my body. I did have seizures when I was younger, waking up crying, screaming, couldn't sleep by myself. Seeing not only a dermatologist, but a neurologist, a nephrologist, all the other specialists that you need to see the signs and areas of what TSC was. Oh, my parents didn't know what TSC was at the time.
So your mom noticed these changes on your skin, took you to the dermatologist, and the dermatologist was the one that gave you the official diagnosis?
Yes, I was young. I was 6 or 7 years old. They had to get a confirmation from another doctor, I believe. TSC wasn't really well known. I mean, still isn't well known. A lot of people don't know. But back in the 90s, I mean, late 90s, it was people were like, "What? That's so rare." So you're like the odd one out, and they're like, "Ooh, ah." I think getting that second opinion, I think, really helped the confirmation that you had TSC.
And your parents adopted you from China.
Yes. I am one out of four in my family that are adopted. I have another two other siblings from South Korea and one other from China. I am the middle in my family that was adopted. I am the only one in my family that has a rare or some sort of medical condition. Technically, I am considered a special needs child. I have gone through the K through 12 special education program. Really, I think opened my parents' eyes to knowing what special needs child is. It's given not only hope and eye-opening for parents that are adopted for kids that are overseas, especially for one of the most leading countries in the world for adoption.
I have a niece and nephew who are adopted by my sister. And I think when you decide to become a parent, whatever way you will become a parent, everyone always imagines their child to be healthy. And we all start with that image, but you have to shift to being prepared for the child who arrives, and not every child who arrives is typical. We all have differences, and there's a million kind of differences. And it probably was a surprise to your parents that this beautiful little boy from China developed a rare condition.
Yes. Since China has stopped international adoption indefinite, seeing that all the kids that were left behind, it's sad, but it's truth.
You feel for the children in China who need homes, who now cannot find them internationally. And amongst them are children who have some sort of medical condition or disability who are often, by at least some families, seen as less desirable as adoptees.
Yes.
So we left off where you were just getting your diagnosis at a dermatologist's office, but you had had other symptoms like seizures and crying at night, which you now connect to TSC. What do you recall following the diagnosis, and what happened next?
I just remember a lot of what do you call those? The EEGs, the ones that are on they go on your brain. A lot of those, a lot of ultrasounds, MRIs, having to be sedated. My mom told me I was crying or screaming when I had to get poked to be sedated to go to the MRI. I mean, how many little kids are going to be excited to go into a little metal machine thing that looks at your body?
Probably zero kids are excited about that, or adults, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very can be scary, and even to this day, I think those are the hard parts. I think, especially having to have those lifelong, not only from the kidneys to the brain to the other parts of your body, but I think that's a lot of the TSC community should understand that they are lifelong. They're going to be there forever, and wherever you live in the world, those are important. We need to stay on track and make sure that you are maintained and healthy.
So as you said, the monitoring is just really crucial to maintain your health, that there's a purpose in having frequent MRIs and frequent tests to live as healthy as possible.
So different body parts are affected, and each body part, whether it's your kidney or your brain, is a different healthcare provider.
Yes.
So you're visiting nephrologists for your kidneys, and you're visiting neurologists for your seizures, and dermatologists for your skin. That's a lot to manage.
Yes, it's affected my skin, my kidneys, my brain. So having seizures when I was younger. Actually, this happened 6 years ago. I guess I had an MRI for my yearly regular MRI scan and get a phone call from the doctor saying, you need to go to the ER right away, right away, right away. And he said you have a DVT. I'm like, what? What's a DVT? They're like, deep vein thrombosis. I'm like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. They're like, you need to go now. And apparently that was caused from my having the blood clot in the splenic vein. And I didn't know what that meant. And I think that, I guess, saying that having those regular scans can find other things as well and complications, and having that communication is very important.
I think you pointed out they don't always communicate with each other. And it's difficult to have a whole group to communicate with each other, particularly if they're not part of like a multidisciplinary clinic and they're in different parts of a hospital or different hospitals. So that's got to be a lot to manage.
Yes. I traveled to my TSC clinic for my visit. However, I know that some others travel by car or plane or by virtually nowadays, but I think it's important just to maintain that relationship with your TSC doctor and reaching out if you actually need help. Connect your other TSC doctors. I mean, for myself, if I have any issues with local doctors, I make sure that they know what they're doing. I've had RN look up what TSC was. It scares me if they don't know anything about TSC. It scares the heck out of me because you don't know what they're gonna do.
So how far do you have to travel in order to get to your specialized TSC clinic?
I'll just say I have to travel to the Midwest, about a 4-hour flight.
And so you live in the Pacific Northwest.
I live in the Pacific Northwest, so that's Seattle, Tacoma area. So yes, it's
So wow, it's a long ways, but you do that in order to get coordinated care.
yes, coordinated care, specialty care in an area that is important to maintain my own personal health.
Yeah, yeah. And when you go to providers locally, they could be great, but
They could be great, they could be bad, they could be wonderful. I've had some amazing ones where they were like, "Oh, we know what TSC is. We looked at everything about your records of what your TSC thing is." But then they could be amazing, and then all of a sudden their staff could be really bad because they are not educated what TSC is. That's the scary part. Like the one doctor I had knew what TSC was, but it was their staffing that didn't know what it was.
I mean, one takeaway already in this conversation is that it's hard to get good care when you have TSC unless you go to a specialized clinic, and sometimes you have to travel really far.
Can we go back and talk a little bit about what it was like growing up, living with TSC when you were a young child? And
I think for growing up, living in the Pacific Northwest, just felt like a normal kid, going to school, enjoying life, growing up with my siblings. I knew that I was different and different special and having different challenges. Had the K through 12 special ed program, went through speech language pathologist, got kicked out, and got tested back, got tested back in actually, and actually was very not pleased with that. Had the IEP, learning over the challenges, transitioning into high school, the middle school to high school level. I've had different stress levels. There would be times where I'd have the meltdowns, crying, wanting to scream at the world because there was just so much in my head that was going on, and having different deadlines and having to meet for school projects, especially for people with TSC, they can be a lot. Even to this day, it's sometimes I have to stop, take a breath, like think about before I actually proceed on. Even to this day, it can be a lot. And I think a lot of people with TSC are always on the go, 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 go. And we need to, again, stop, slow down, and think about what we're doing, and then actually enjoy the moment sometimes as well, so that we don't overstress ourselves and end up in the hospital for something that could have been prevented.
so TSC can affect thinking and mood.
Yeah, I've noticed quite a number of mood swings, very, very difficult the mood swings and the outbursts and the OCD as well. Just there's so much the complexity of the TSC where people don't realize that it's TSC or it is TSC.
So I think they call it tuberous sclerosis complex for multiple reasons, right? It's complex, an arrangement of challenges. Okay, so going back to growing up, I guess I'm curious then, did you talk to your friends about TSC and how much awareness did they have into your condition?
Uh, Growing up, I didn't really have many friends. I think a lot of the TSC people within the community understand that you are different. You are not popular or fit in with a lot of the crowd. I just say I think I just stuck to myself a lot, and to this day I do. I didn't really advocate for TSC at the time until I was in my mid 20s, upper 30s. I know like when I was in school, I think people were like looking at my face, the amount of red bumps on my face. That was a lot of a trigger to a lot of people. They kept saying, "Why is your face so red? Do you have so much acne?" I think that's a big part of a lot of TSC people, and it does hurt. Even to this day, when I go to my home country, sometimes people ask like, "Why is your face red?" and whatnot. They just look at you differently.
Sometimes we feel different. Probably most adolescents go through a period of time when they feel that. And then sometimes they are different. How much of it was you felt different because you live with a lifelong medical condition?
I just felt different. I don't know if many peers would actually notice, but I also don't want to be the special person out there in school. Oh, okay, he's different. He needs the special treatment. I think that's the hard part. But even in school, when you had to go to different programs, they would pull you for classes or for having a proctor or someone taking notes for you. You know that you are different. You are special because you need those accommodations without being embarrassed, without being considered in some cultures shamed. And I think we need to stop that stereotype and putting that shame onto our community and knowing that it's okay to have those accommodations. It's so that we can achieve our goals to what we want to in life.
Yeah. So it was to avoid being perceived as a special child, you chose to kind of be on your own.
Yes.
That's a pretty high price to pay for a feeling of, I don't like the word, but a feeling of normalcy is that if you kept to yourself, then you were able to feel more like everybody else, but it meant keeping away from everybody else.
Yes.
You mentioned how some healthcare providers really didn't know anything about TSC. I wondered about the people in school who were helping to provide services, et cetera. Like, did they understand? Did they get enough information? Did they look out for you? Did you have to fight for the services that you needed?
In the elementary part of my schooling, I think that they just knew some stuff, but didn't really know it much. It was more in the transition to 7th, 8th, and 9th grade where I run into a lot of stumbles with teachers not wanting to provide the accommodations or want to take away accommodations. And it was really hard to get those with the IEP and just getting everyone on the same page. I think that was the big part where having those times where it's stressful because a lot of us can't reach those levels.
Many kids growing up experience is that the older you get, the more difficult it is to manage the kind of services that you may need or accommodations. I'm going to guess that there's also the sense of being different, and that increases during certain times of your life, particularly when being like everyone else is so highly valued. It's really a difficult road that you have been sent down, Daniel.
I think there was challenges when I was in middle school where I needed to put myself first. And I think that realizing that I need people around me that look like me, need people that have the same condition as me, understand. And so I was very blessed to be able to reach out to the TSC community, almost 7 years ago. That's how long I've been with this organization and advocating for TSC, and especially in the rare disease community. And I think it's important to stay connected. We check in with everyone because it's fairly important, and I just don't want to lose anyone.
I'm reminded of a guest on our podcast, Effie Parks, also a podcaster, and she's a rare mom. And she said, you have to find your people. And it sounds like that when you became connected in the TSC community, you found your people. You found people who could understand what you're going through. And of course, you could be really helpful to them, not only through just making a connection, but making sure that people looked after themselves in the way that is so important.
You could say that for a lot of communities, but yes, I think within the rare disease community, finding your people, finding your tribe, that's what they say in the adoption community, finding your tribe. So finding your people, finding people that understand you without having them judge you, question you, look at you differently. We need to learn from each other so we can become one and fight this disease together so that no one is left out.
And now you're a very strong advocate, very visible advocate in the TSC community.
Yes. Within the TSC community, I've been to things like Comedy for a Cure, La March on the Hill, advocating for the TSCRP, regional conferences overseas, such as like Australia, New Zealand, another rare disease organization in Singapore, not especially for TSC, but other rare diseases. But staying connected is not only just for TSC, but we can learn from other rare disease organizations as well.
You're a leader and advocate in the TSC community. You're a leader and an advocate in the broader rare disease community, and also in the adoptee community. And the adoptee community, the subset of folks who live with rare disease too. I mean, Daniel, this is incredible. I mean, this is great work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Just recently, I think in the adoption side, it's a topic we're linking a lot to, and it's opening a lot of people's minds of finding not only in China, but other countries around the world that have people that are adopted that have medical conditions. And I think it's really important to talk about. It comes down to family planning. It comes down to people's lives. And it's we need to support each person's life because in the end, we don't want people to be forgotten. The end result, we don't want someone to take their own life.
Well, the finding your tribe, finding your people can be a guide and can open your life up to connections that you hadn't really thought about. So it seems like it's really worked for you, and I'm sure it's worked for the other people. Just something about your personal life. You travel a lot.
Yes, I do travel a lot. I work in the aviation industry. Been able to travel different parts of the globe and see places in the world that most people don't think about going to or can't get to. We see different parts of the world, and I think it's important to understand food, cultures, and language, and so much more. I guess be open-minded to the world we live in.
We learn about our own culture and our own country when we go to other cultures and other countries, and we note the similarities and differences. So I'm really happy that you've had that opportunity.
Yes, and I think when I really caught on to something was when I went to one of the conferences for the TSC, and I realized I had travel perks, and I was like thinking, oh, I guess I can go to different TSC events, and that caught on, and where I could use my travel benefits for a better outcome of life.
Maybe the aerospace industry is your next, the next frontier. So Daniel, what's your favorite place then that you have traveled?
I really do like Taiwan, Singapore, Australia. Those are just dream places that I would love to live to that have some sort of better healthcare system, cost of living is better. And I think just overall people are friendlier and enjoying life, family oriented, and cultures and food, and people are happier.
Sounds like we should go exploring with Daniel.
Exploring with Daniel would be the next podcast title. Daniel, we're so grateful to you for joining us today. There's so much about your experience that is fascinating, both living with a rare condition, TSC, being an adoptee. You're friendly, you're outgoing, you connect with people, just like you've connected with us today.
Just one thing, we're finding a lot of people who are adopted that have a medical condition live under some sort of a LGBTQ umbrella, which is fascinating, but we all have something very similar.
A whole additional facet. We may have to invite you back to hear more about that as well.
Yes.
Once again, thank you. This has been great.
Thank you for having me on this podcast.
David, what a great interview. Daniel's story is rare among rare stories. He was adopted, was diagnosed with a rare disease in situations where people with TSC get the diagnosis much earlier, often in utero. So his was unique in that situation. And then once he did get his diagnosis, he had to overcome a number of struggles as a child and as a teenager before he found his voice and has become this tremendous advocate.
People often talk about what kind of benefit can be derived from a challenging experience. And Daniel is really an example of that. He went from someone who had learned to be shy because he felt really different than other people to getting involved with the tuberous sclerosis community. And I think that really helped him feel success and find his people, as Effie Parks put it. And having met his people, he then became empowered to also advocate for adoptees, for LGBTQ people living with rare diseases, and has just become an exceptional voice in the rare community.
Yeah, and now he's providing mentorship, guidance, support for others. He has been and always will be an incredible person.
He's providing the mentorship and support that we wish that he received while he was growing up.
Thank you, David. Thanks again to Daniel and to Che-Wei for helping us to better understand TSC. Thank you, as always, to our exceptional producer, Amy Brooks. To learn more about TSC, visit the TSC Alliance. And if you like this podcast, please subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please write us at onrare@bridgebio.com. Thanks for being with us today, and join us for our next conversation on Rare.